So we'll start with the next treatment unit, that is called as filtration. So as the name suggests, the process deals with the filtering of water. So basically there is one filter media. So if I draw it here, so there is one media which is present. We'll call this media as filter media or filter medium. When the water is passed through this, so this is water. So when the water pass through this filter media, the impurities which are present in water, so basically the impurities means some microorganisms, colloidal particles, and also dissolved particles. This get this gets removed by the filtering action, and the resultant water that we get after filtration, this is pure water. Okay, so there are various types of filter medias which are present. So basically in India we use the sand filters, whereas in some of the foreign countries they use anthracite coal as the filter media. As the anthracite coal is not available in abundance in India, we go for the sand one. Okay, so write it down, these points. So filtration is a method. Filtration is a method of passing water through a medium called as filter media. So various types of filter media are, so the first one is sand one. Okay, so the sand that we use is silica sand. So silica sand, then anthracite coal, etc. So we use this in India. Okay, now there is certain mechanism in this filter media that helps in this purification of water. So that mechanisms that we are going to see it now. Before doing it, before seeing that, you just write down one more point about filtration, that filtration removes fine flock particles. It also removes dissolved impurities dissolved impurities and microorganisms. Now this flock particles means, what is the meaning of this flock? When we add the coagulant to the water, there is interparticle bridging of the colloidal particles. Okay, so due to that interparticle bridging, there is a certain suspension type material is formed, that is called as flock. Now this flock is relatively heavier in weight, so as compared to colloidal particles, hence it settles down in the sedimentation process. Now some of the flock particles which are fine do not get settled in the sedimentation tank, so it gets carried to the next unit, that is filtration. Now in this filtration unit, these flock particles are also settled. Now what are the various types of filter? So the first type is First type is, or we can say the first category is based on force with which filtration is carried out. Okay, whether the force is a natural force, that is force due to gravity, or there is an applied force. So if there is a natural force, that is gravitational force, then we'll call it as gravity filters. And if the force is artificially applied, we'll call it as pressure filter. So pressure is applied in such filters for the filtration process. Now second classification, it is based on a rate of filtration. Rate of filtration. So in short, we'll be calling this as ROF. So if the rate of filtration is high, then we call it as a rapid sand filter. If the rate of filtration is low, then we call it as slow sand filter. Okay, so in this case, the rate of filtration is high. So what do we mean by rate of filtration? It is nothing but the rate at which water is getting filtered. That means in the slow sand filter, the rate of filtration is low. That means it is taking more time for the water to get filtered through this process. Now the last classification is based on the number of medias present. Based on number of filter media present. So we have seen that there is a filter media which is required for the filtration of water. Now if there are 2 to 3 filter medias, then based on that the name of filters are given. So if there is one filter media, then it is called as single media filter. Single media filter. If there are two mediums, then it is called as double media filter. And if there is more than two, then it is called as multimedia filter. I hope you are getting it. See, if the filter media is only one, then it is called as single media filter. So this is filter media 1. If there is two filter media 2, then it is called as double media filter. If more than 2 they are present, let's say 3 are present, then this will be called as multimedia filter. Okay. Now the next unit or the next topic that we have to discuss is the mechanism of filtration. Mechanism of filtration. So in this mechanism, the first point that we have to study is called as mechanical straining. Mechanical straining. So this is the first thing that happens when the water is passed through the filter media. So what is the meaning of this mechanical straining? So it is just, you can imagine as a sieve analysis of water. So whatever the coarse particles are present, it gets settled at the top of the filter bed. So most of the particles or impurities are removed in upper layers. So if I just draw the diagram here, it will be more clear to you. So there are very fine particles which are present in the filter media and the topmost layer. Okay, So the topmost layer consists of very fine sand. As we go down, the size of filter media, so it changes. That is, there is a sand bed which is present at the top, and then at the bottom there is gravel bed. Okay. Now, when the water is getting passed through this, as you can see, there are some pores which are present. So whatever the impurities that are present which cannot be passed through these pores, these impurities are retained on this top. So this process is called as mechanical straining. Now, second one is sedimentation. Sedimentation. So when the water enters into this sand bed, so the water does not pass directly down. It travels in the pores as per the required direction it is getting. Okay. So if you just watch closely, then this water will keep on flowing with very low velocity in these pores for a great amount of time. So when the water is flowing with a very low velocity, there is settlement of the particles which are present in water. So water flows when water flows with very less velocity in filter media, settlement or sedimentation of impurities takes place. Okay. Now, after the sedimentation, the next process that we have to see is called as interception. Interception. So if we just draw the particles of this filter media, let's say I'm taking these two particles and I'm drawing it here in bigger size. So this is that particle number 1, this is the particle number 2, and the water is flowing in between them. Okay, so when the water will be flowing along with these particles, so whatever the small impurities are present, so due to the force of attraction, these particles will get stick to this bigger bigger particle in the filter media. So this process which occurs due to force of attraction, this is called as interception. So due to force of attraction force of attraction between between particles in filter media and particles in, so these particles can be any particles. Okay, they can be flock particles, they can be colloidal, or maybe dissolved impurities. So this there is a force of attraction between these particles and the particles in filter media. Due to the force of attraction between particles in filter media and particles in water, both the particles get stuck to each other. Okay. Now the last one and the most important process or mechanism in this filtration is called as biological mechanism. Now in this biological mechanism, So there are three most important layers or zones of purifications that are developed on the sand bed. So there are three zones of purification developed on sand bed. So as we know, the sand bed is the topmost bed which is present. Now on this bed there are three zones which are developed due to this biological mechanism. Now the first zone is called as surface coating, surface coating, and it is called as this word is important, smooth deck. Okay, smooth deck. So this word has been asked many times in the exam, that is smooth deck is formed in which of the following treatment plants. So it is formed in filtration, and that also, okay, in the biological mechanism. It is formed due to the biological mechanism. Now after surface coating there is a next zone which is called as autotrophic zone, and below this zone there is a zone which is called as heterotrophic zone. Okay, so if I draw it here, then it will be just like this. So this is a sand bed which is present. So above this sand bed these three layers are present. Okay, so on the topmost there is the surface coating smooth deck. Below smooth deck there is a next coating, that is autotrophic zone, and below this autotrophic zone into this filter media, that is sand, there is this heterotrophic zone. Now this all the three zones helps in the purification of water. Okay, so when a new filter is put in the commission, okay, when a new filter is in the operation and the raw water is passed through it, then during the first 2 weeks the upper layers of sand, they get coated with a partially decomposed organic matter. So if we see, this is our topmost layer. So initially in the first 2 weeks there is deposit of partially decomposed organic matter. Now there is a coating which is formed due to this, and this coating absorbs the organic matter in the colloidal state and the dissolved state. So as you can see that when the water is allowed to pass through this topmost layer, so there is a biological layer, or we can say a mat, which is developed. Mat is developed on the topmost surface of sand. So there is a mat which is developed on the topmost surface of sand after 2 to 3 weeks. After 2 to 3 weeks. Now this mat acts as an extremely fine straining mat, and this is called as smooth deck. Okay, now below this smooth deck, as we have seen, there is an autotrophic zone. Now this autotrophic zone, it breaks down the organic matter. So if I just write it down here, so it breaks down the organic matter. So it breaks down the organic matter, and the few millimeters below the autotrophic zone there is a heterotrophic zone. Now in this heterotrophic zone, so there is the same process, that is breakdown of organic matter, and the bacteria are developed in large numbers, and these bacteria helps in clearing the water. they help in clearing the water. So this is also breakdown of organic matter. So this is how the entire filtration mechanism is done. So from this part, that is mechanism of filtration, you have to remember what are the different stages like mechanical straining, sedimentation, interception and biological mechanism, and the one point about Simuj deck. Okay, so that's it from the introduction part of filtration. Now from the next video, we'll start with the slow sand filters, and after that rapid sand filters.